You ever get that, like, spine-chilling feeling
Hmm.
when you're home alone at night and every little sound, every creak, every groan suddenly has you freaked out?
Oh, absolutely.
It's kind of the vibe I got watching The Conjuring 2, you know?
Yeah.
It wasn't just the jump scares. Those got me too, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But there's this, like, this underlying sense of dread, this unsettling feeling that really sticks with you.
Oh, it gets under your skin for sure.
Totally. So today, we're going to do a deep dive into The Conjuring 2. Figure out what makes this film tick, why it's so darn effective.
Sounds good.
We're going beyond those jump scares, those gotcha moments.
Right.
We want to understand how it gets in your head and stays there. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It's a masterclass in atmosphere.
Yes.
Creating a sustained sense of unease.
Exactly. We're not talking about your run-of-the-mill haunted house here.
Yeah.
The Conjuring 2 knows how to tap into something deeper, something much more unsettling.
It does.
So to get us started, let's set the scene.
Okay.
1977, we're in Enfield, England,
Enfield.
and we're introduced to the Hodgson family,
Right.
a single mother and her 4 kids living in a seemingly ordinary house.
Right. Seems like it. Seems normal enough.
Yeah, until things start getting really, really strange. We're talking moving furniture, disembodied
The
voices,
whole shebang.
the works, like classic haunting stuff.
Yeah. But it's that intersection of the ordinary and the extraordinary. That's what makes The Conjuring 2 so effective.
Right, because it could be anyone, anywhere, right?
Absolutely. That's it. It's that it could happen to me factor.
Exactly. So you've got this family just trying to live their lives, and bam, their world is upended by these creepy events.
And then, of course, you have Ed and Lorraine Warren enter the picture,
Oh, right.
the paranormal investigators.
Based on the real-life couple.
Yeah,
Right.
Yes. Adds a whole other layer there.
Totally. So we've got our setting, we've got our haunted family, but then the film throws us a curveball.
Oh. How so?
Because we start to see glimpses of Janet.
One of the daughters.
Right. And it seems like she might be faking some of this stuff.
Interesting.
It makes us question, is this real? Or are these kids just messing around?
Ah, that element of doubt. Love it. So smart.
It is. And it's unsettling because we've all been there, right?
Totally. Questioning what's real, what's not, especially with this kind of stuff.
Exactly.
It makes you wonder, how much of what we believe is real is just us wanting it to be, right?
100%, yeah. And that's where the real fear creeps in, I think. When you can't trust your own judgment.
Right, because you start doubting yourself, like, wait, did I see that? Or was it just my imagination?
Totally. And The Conjuring 2 is full of these moments that play with our perceptions. Like that scene, and this one really got me, where Janet's sleepwalking again. The source material went into a lot of detail about this scene. They described how she ends up downstairs in the living room, in the middle of the night. But here's the really creepy part. She's speaking in this deep, raspy voice.
Oh, yeah. Like an old man's voice, right?
Exactly. It's totally chilling. And it's another example of how the film uses Janet's vulnerability to freak us out. I mean, she's just a kid.
Absolutely. It plays on our deepest fears, The idea of a child being possessed or controlled by something evil, it just sends shivers down my spine.
No kidding. And the way Juan directs it, it's like he's inviting us into this nightmare. I remember reading about that scene in the source material where Janet is standing on the window ledge during a huge thunderstorm.
Oh, yeah. Intense scene.
The wind is howling, the window's rattling, and you're just waiting for something awful to happen.
And the brilliance of that scene is that we don't actually see anything, right?
Exactly. It's all about what we don't see, which is almost always scarier than what we do see, in my opinion.
100%. Our imaginations just take over, and we fill in the blanks with our worst fears.
Right. And the way the source material described it, Juan actually used practical effects to make everything feel even more real, more menacing.
Oh, I love that he uses practical effects whenever he can. It makes such a difference.
I agree. It just adds to the whole believability factor. Like, this stuff could actually be happening. The source material even pointed out how the curtains in that scene billow inward, as if something's trying to claw its way in. Oof, so creepy.
Ugh, yeah. You can practically feel the presence of something evil just outside that window. And that's the beauty of practical effects. They just tap into something primal.
Right. Speaking of primal, let's talk about the guy behind the camera for a second. James Wan. Talk about a master of horror.
The man knows how to scare us, that's for sure.
He really does. But it's not just about the scares,
What do you mean?
Well, I was reading in the source material how Wan really emphasizes sound design in his films. He uses these subtle, often unsettling noises to get under our skin.
Oh, totally. Sound is so important in horror.
So crucial. Like that creaking sound that follows Janet around the house. It's barely noticeable at first, but it slowly starts to drive you crazy.
Oh, yeah. I know exactly what you mean. It's like, is it real? Or am I imagining it?
Exactly.
It messes with your head.
And that's what makes it so effective.
Absolutely, because it creates this atmosphere of paranoia and unease. You're constantly on edge, waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Right. It's like he's playing with our minds.
Yeah.
But in the best way possible, of course.
Well, maybe best is debatable.
Haha, fair enough.
Yeah.
But seriously, the sound design in The Conjuring 2 is top-notch.
Definitely agree. It's masterful. Really elevates the whole thing.
For sure. But you know what else struck me about The Conjuring 2?
Hmm.
It's not just about jump scares and creepy sounds.
What else is there?
It actually delves into some pretty deep themes, too.
Oh, yeah. Like what? Tell me more.
Well, for one thing, there's this whole idea of faith.
Right. With Ed and Lorraine Warren, their faith is a big part of their story.
Exactly. And the source material really highlighted that, how their faith is presented as a central element of their work. They're not just paranormal investigators, they're like warriors battling against evil.
Totally. It's like they're using their faith as a weapon against the darkness.
Yes. And I thought that was really interesting how the film explores the power of belief in the face of something so terrifying and unknown.
Yeah, it makes you think, what would you do in that situation?
Right. Would your faith be enough to protect you? I don't know. It's a scary thought. And speaking of scary thoughts, there's this other theme that the film touches on that really freaked me out. The whole concept of knowing a demon's name.
Ah, yes. It's a creepy one. It's like this ancient belief, right? Like, if you know a demon's true name, you have power over it.
Right. And the source material mentioned that this idea plays a pretty significant role in the climax of the film.
Oh, that's right, yeah. It's a powerful concept.
It really is. And it makes you wonder about the Warrens themselves, you know, because they're facing these incredibly powerful dark forces head on.
Yeah, like you think about it, that has to take a toll, right?
Totally. I mean, the source material even hinted that these cases, they change them, they leave scars. Makes you think, what's scarier? The demons themselves, or the effect they have on us, on our sanity.
Right, like even if you survive an encounter with something like that, are you ever truly the same? It's a chilling thought.
It is, and it makes me think that maybe that's what we're really responding to when we watch a film like The Conjuring 2.
Right.
It's not just about being entertained by scares, it's about confronting something deeper, something unsettling about the world and our place in it.
Oh, absolutely. I think horror, when it's done well, it holds up a mirror to our deepest fears, our anxieties about the unknown.
You know, the source material even touched on that idea, how these kinds of stories, they often tap into very real anxieties. The fear of the unknown, the fear of losing control.
Absolutely. And those fears, they're universal, they're primal. It's no wonder these stories resonate with us so deeply.
So we've got a film that expertly blends classic horror elements with psychological suspense, a healthy dose of real-world anxiety, and on top of that, it's a pretty darn good story.
It's true. The Conjuring 2 really does fire on all cylinders. It's a masterclass in modern horror, no doubt.
It really is. So, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend checking it out. But be warned, you might want to leave the lights on afterwards.
Definitely don't watch it alone.
Good advice.
Yeah.
And that's it for our deep dive into The Conjuring 2.
Until next time.
Keep exploring those dark corners of your imagination.